Terrapins in a Podcast, episode 2. And before we start this podcast this week, or this month, or whenever we're fucking gonna do it, because we're not really that consistent. I just want to do a special shout out to a lovely lady called Hannah McGivern, who did this amazing art for us that you can see right now with your eye holes. The link to her Instagram is in the description. Just send her a little DM about getting commission done. She is very helpful. She sent loads of back and forth about what she wanted to do with it and what we wanted to do with it, and it was fantastic. And by we, I mean me. Had zero
I said
input.
some, but in fairness, that was my fault.
Yeah, I sent you it, and you were like, blame Facebook for not getting that message.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't like, yeah.
Yeah, Film doesn't use
Message
Facebook.
me on goddamn Discord.
I did. I sent you a lovely message on Discord. I sent you two. Yeah.
That was after you'd picked it.
After it was done.
In fairness,
It looks
good.
It looks great. I love it. And I'm probably gonna get her to do like variants, like for doing a movie review or something like that. And I have a couple more ideas in my head that are funny. I've a really funny one for lost episodes, if we ever end up accidentally recording a lost episode. Although I am sick at the moment, so let's see how much this actually makes it to the interwebs. Okay, I think we launch straight into the topic.
Good.
Yeah, then we're gonna talk about lost media this week, because I've been recently watching a lot of videos about lost media, and I think it's kind of a funny, fascinating topic, especially what other people would deem as lost media. What would you deem lost media? Like something that's lost?
Well, because I am also technically minded, old tech. You go past Windows 98, Microsoft 2000, anything. If anyone who's ever worked in compatibility or has been trying to run older games in particular, you know the pain of trying to force modern Windows to run anything made before Vista, really, or before XP especially.
I would. There's a controversial pick I would say is not lost media, and it's PT, playable teaser.
Well,
it's both. It's a bit of both, because you can still readily view the game. You can it's still there, like it's still viewable, and it's in its entirety.
Archivist would pick a fight with you over that,
but
you
yeah,
can't play it.
You can't play it, and it's a video game, and that's the point of the medium. I think I feel like somewhere online it does exist to some capacity where you can download it and probably play it.
It's not lost media in the sense that it's completely inaccessible. People have PS4s that can still play it. It's like Flappy Birds. People still have phones on eBay that they've refused to touch since Flappy Birds was removed from the store. But it's also the PS4. And if there's anything I've learned about the contemporary, not video games industry, but rather the contemporary hacking scene, they will find a way. Give them another few years, they will find a way.
I think
failing that, like Konami will sort of be pushed into it because they'll realize that there's money in it, maybe.
No, we'll be like 5 years down the line, and Konami will go, yeah, we're bringing PT back as a pachinko machine.
Haven't they already?
No.
Oh, well, give it time. But yeah. Like either that or I don't know, Kojima will buy it back or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not dead yet.
Yeah, it's kind of halfway. I would argue it does exist to some. Like you can still find it and play it.
Yeah.
Like that is still an option. I would consider there's episodes of shows that are not viewable anymore. But I think the most interesting examples are the ones that end up being found. And then when you look at the descriptions of what people thought, like there was the reason I kind of wanted to do this topic is I saw this video, this clip from Sesame Street. From I think it was like the 70s or 80s, and like you have to understand that like a lot of stuff from the 70s and 80s don't get archived well, because like this is before the 70s is kind of around the start of home video.
Yeah, this is when VHS is still a commercial thing.
It's basically when the VHS to the 90s is the golden pages on the internet to 1995, when people said, people were like, I'm gonna put my ad in the golden pages. The internet's just a fad and it's not gonna go anywhere. People were like, we're not gonna archive our shows because VHS is a fad and it's not gonna go anywhere. And now everything we have is pretty much home media, kind of. I don't count streaming services, no way. But
well, look, streaming services are an archive nightmare
on their own.
But that's a separate
that's a topic for another day. But the big thing was the thing was 10 years ago, maybe 12, 13 years ago at this stage. There was a person who had put a clip up, or who had put a post up on Reddit or 4chan or something. Basically, description of this scene from a sketch from Sesame Street with the cracks, and it was like this LSD fever dream that most people like would look at it and go, that didn't exist. But they got responses, and then they eventually got sent in secrecy the clip. And I didn't believe this was true because I was watching this video. I was like, this is bullshit because you're just going to tell me. And no one has seen the video. But no, because someone else got their hands on it and uploaded it.
Oh, okay.
So now it is no longer lost media. It has been found, but it's a really strange and funny case of lost media because it was found eventually, but it was found maybe fucking 40 years after its original debut, and it aired once. It only ever, because again, it's Sesame Street. Sesame Street has well over 1,000 episodes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Google how many episodes.
It's a children's show, so it's early video games. It's even
Well,
not even early cinema, but like it's a child's plaything as far as the bigger industries are concerned. So it tends not to get the attention it deserves. Like, God knows, going back the years when like the early female writers who would be writing fiction and stuff, a lot of their stuff would just get thrown out as this kind of mindless trash. When today we're like, oh my god, give us all of them. It's amazing. It's amazing the things they wrote about.
I'm gonna point this out. Sesame Street has 4,514 episodes. Okay.
Jim Henson is a.
It wasn't him. The Sesame Street started because there's this woman who wanted to do a kids TV show, because at the time TV was kind of it was literally for everyone. There was no shows specifically guarded to certain. TV started at a certain time and it ended at a certain time of the day, and then you have to wait until TV started again.
Early broadcast restrictions, yeah.
And she started the children's television workshop, and they got in touch with Jim Henson. And funny thing is that Jim Henson initially didn't want to do it, because he didn't want his Muppets to be associated with children's stuff. He wanted to, because he was still trying to pilot the Muppets.
General audience stuff, wasn't he?
Yeah, but like the first ever Muppet, like Muppets special, like what we would kind of look at as the Muppet Show, was called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. I think it was something like that. Sex, Drugs, and Violence.
Yeah,
that's what.
This one, yeah.
And it's really funny. It's really out of touch because nobody wanted it. But I think each of the individual sketches on their own works. But the problem was that like it was just cut so much that it was kind of fucked.
Well, it was cut. It was early in his creative career, so it's gonna be a bit.
Yeah, actually wasn't. His early creative career, he started on public TV and moved his way up. But he started just doing a lot of specials. Like, to put it this way, Gonzo made his first appearance as a character that was called a Frackle, but he wasn't called Gonzo, and Jim Henson just handed him to a random intern and said, "Make this a character." Gonzo is now very famous, and then a couple of years down the line, when he was creating the Fraggles, he was like, "I can't think of a name," and they went, "Oh, just call them the Frackles. That's what they sound like." And he was like, "No," and then just thought of the name Fraggle. Go back to the topic of lost media.
Yeah,
we just
Defunct TV is a YouTube channel who looks at old Disney and the things like that.
Oh,
it's a
man.
massive special on Jim Henson, and I loved it to pieces.
Oh, yeah. I watched it as well. It was very touching. It was very well put together though, because I kind of liked how Defunctland is actually a good example of like a person who looks at, or a crowd that looks at kind of lost. I would consider like theme park rides lost media.
Well, at that point you're getting out of media and more into just
Attraction based.
History in general.
Yeah. It does happen. Like, look at I'll put it this way, right? So Doctor Who itself, right, is a show that has lots of lost episodes because the BBC horribly archived things.
Look, National Archives.
But
today, if there's a National Archive near you and they want help them. But back in the day,
nobody cared.
There was no National Archive. Ireland today doesn't actually have a National Archive.
Yeah.
And the Irish Film Institute, which technically counts as the National Archive, actually isn't national. They're sort of private.
They're private. They have private interest.
Non-profit group, which is mental because almost every other country that would care about this kind of thing has nationally funded archives.
But the interesting thing about this Doctor Who having a lot of lost media is that the Beatles performed on Top of the Pops, and that episode is considered lost. except for a small clip of it, which is viewable in an episode of Doctor Who. And it's fact, it's the only clip that exists of this that we know of. Obviously, this was way back in the 60s, so VHS wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Especially in the UK. It's a really good example of lost media as well.
The Star Wars Christmas special, you about to say?
No, the original Star Wars movie. I know they kind of do exist, but you can't find them anymore. The original Star Wars movies.
Without all the
Without
CG edits.
the unspecial editions, yeah, the despecialized editions. Because I know they made it their goal. These guys tried to do it on Kickstarter, and George Lucas was letting them, and then they were bought out by he sold Lucasfilm to Disney.
And then it died on the spot because
Disney didn't want to do it.
Fans.
Well, it's not even that. I think it's really weird because Disney do get a lot of shit press, but it's strange because like people
they deserve most of it.
I think what's funny is that I would consider Disney's legal team to be way more evil than Disney's like leaders, because like a lot of Disney's like creative leads and stuff are, and even like Bob Iger, who's like the CEO of Disney, like he's not evil. I don't think he's done a lot. Like he came in and he said, okay, we gotta buy properties, but he started a lot of really good trends. Like they do I don't know if they did this before him or not, but they do a creator award where every year they award someone who has been very important in creative media this like plaque with their name on it and stuff. Like they gave it to Stan Lee a couple of years ago because obviously they now own Marvel, but like I think that's cool. I think that's a cool award to give to people.
So yeah, it's a cute little award, but like the YouTube awards where when you hit the milestones, they send you out stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I say Disney deserve half the criticism they get, I don't mean like same way because I do rail against companies and like game development studios. I don't mean everyone there is a horrible person.
Oh yeah.
Generally speaking, the animators, the script writers, the people who could the talent to come into act, and a lot of the people who are downstream, they're usually trying their damnedest to make something good. It's just as a whole, like the reason copyright law is a joke is because in the States in particular is because Disney petitioned to change it like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And made it illegal to copy works that they copied.
It wasn't just Disney though. People always say it's just Disney. I know the original.
Big pushers.
It was also the original creators of Superman.
Yeah.
That's why. So Superman's original like design, he had a black like chest emblem with a red S instead of the really iconic one we have now.
Yeah, the red.
But the reason they changed it was because they found a loophole. DC changed it. They found a loophole within the copyright law. So like I think it's 2028 is when Mickey Mouse now goes 100%. But it's not Mickey Mouse in the red shorts. It's black and white Mickey Mouse. He's the only one that goes. But Disney rebooted that and now technically have clout because there's also a copyright law in America that says after 35 years, the original creator of something can claim back their artwork. It's what happened to Terminator. That's why the new Terminator movie came out, but James Cameron had heavy involvement in it. He was able to claim ownership of that back. They've now stopped. Stephen King did it, and that's why the horrible Pet Sematary movie came out last year, because they had to rush it because he claimed all his film rights back. Friday the 13th, original creator claimed all the rights back. Reboot shelved because of it. The weirdest one I've seen so far is Chucky. This is a weird one. So Child's Play 1 came out under a different studio, and then they didn't want to fund a sequel, but the creator Don Mancini wanted to do a sequel, so they did a deal with Universal where they sold the rights to sequels to Universal. But they rebooted Child's Play last year, but the current Child's Play franchise that exists is now just going under the moniker of Chucky, still goes on. Because there's two separate studios. Now granted, they've kind of done a good job separating the two of them.
Yeah, but that just leads to the disaster of trying to separate everything.
Yeah.
Like how technically you can use the Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah.
But the minute you even reference anything that Disney may have added to the story, which has become more
popular,
common public knowledge, then technically you're infringing on them, which is just
it's like
a nightmare, which doesn't encourage people to create things. That encourages people to kind of panic and then sell out to Disney as soon as they get
But
the
it's
chance.
Disney kind of did the smart thing, because they if you look at Jungle Book, one of the most popular characters I'd say in Jungle Book is King Louie. Hands down, he just is. But he is a full-on creation of Disney's. He did not exist in the original book, but in the movie, he's a very important plot point because they wanted Louis Armstrong to play him. And ironically, Louis Armstrong's team told him to turn it down. Said it's not going to be great, might be good. and then Louis Armstrong ended up singing a medley of Jungle Book songs at the Oscars that year because it was very popular. Oh no, I don't know. I think the weird thing about Disney is that like people give out about the fact they buy a lot of properties, but I think what's amazing about that is every property they have bought, like as much as you look at it, you can look at it from a business standpoint where they're going, yeah, they're going to make money out of it. They have actually treated it with a lot of respect. And they have Star Wars, the first thing they said was, we're going to do a lot of practical effects, we're going to go to locations, we're going to do all this stuff.
The other thing they said as soon as they bought Star Wars is, nuts to all of your fan canon, we're going to kick it all in the head and then slowly start reintroducing it as it can make us money.
That wasn't Disney's choice though.
Knights of the Old Republic is canon again.
It's canon now, because...
Which it wasn't, because they de-canoned everything. Which,
no.
But the thing is, I actually don't care about the companies, and for a big part of it, I kind of also don't care about the specific thing itself. Like,
yeah.
if they're gonna make an amazing Star Wars movie, I kind of don't care, because if there's one thing I've learned from games is that throwing loads of money at a production and then just saying it'll be better is kind of a joke. Like most big studios will throw ridiculous amounts of money, ridiculous amounts of man hours at a game, and then it ends up competing with something like Papers, Please or The Curse of the Obra Dinn, which is a single man production by the same guy, and those games end up getting more like critical acclaim than the Big Fun game, because the Big Fun games are using a very repetitive stale format, and then the more creatively expressive independent game developers are able to take risks and able to do something much more visually interesting that didn't need the big amounts of money. Like it's the argument of working within restrictions. You know?
You look at a lot of indie developers though, like
games are my thing, unfortunately.
Who's the guy that did Stardew?
I don't remember.
I know
Obra Dinn and Papers, Please is Lucas Pope though. Just remembered.
Because I know he separated from the studio that he worked with.
Really?
Yeah, he worked with a studio to help update the game and move it onto consoles and stuff. And recently they announced that he's decided to part ways, and he's just back to a one-man team now.
Yeah, but like a lot of those indie developers, as difficult as that is, and as much of a minefield,
they just prefer it.
Yeah, they'll end up working better themselves and creating much more focused experiences.
Well, I think what it was for I think what it is for a lot of indie developers, and I know for myself when I'm writing stuff, I find that when I'm not collectively doing something that's my own, I'm making something more that I would want.
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect creative process. Because I think Stardew Valley started pretty much on the idea that what if there was a modern day Harvest Moon game?
I just want to play Harvest Moon again, yeah.
I just want to play Harvest. I'm excited for his next game. His next game looks good.
I'm unplugged and reading.
It's it's the same kind of shtick, but it's set in kind of like a Harry Potter wizard school type thing.
Right.
Like that's like big Harry Potter fan. Obviously that's why I'm really excited for this. But it just looks good. Because like even if you look at his game compared to Harvest Moon, they are very different. So I'm excited to see what he does with that formula that is different.
Yeah.
Because
especially with the lessons he's learned from Harvest Moon already.
Ever since Harry Potter came out, like I've seen end to no end of basically the same show or same thing, except there was a show on Nickelodeon years ago called House of Anubis that my sister used to love. I remember sitting down and watching it once, and I was like, this is just Harry Potter, but they're not wizards. It's the school itself that is magic, and it's not them. So, like the fuck, it's the weird thing. It's like
This is the manga anime thing of the genres are so heavily defined that you can basically compare them all really easily to each other. This is just Harry Potter. This is the smart one. This is the dumb one, and this is the protagonist. It's similar to like, I don't know, a shonen anime and going, this is the protagonist, this is his friend,
this is the pervy old man,
rival, and this is the ultimate enemy, and
I
pointing at the arcs and going, yeah, look, it's never gonna bloody end.
I think we should get back to the topic at hand, to be honest.
I find just lost episodes, particularly within superhero stuff, I find hilariously interesting, because I'm not a fan of contemporary superhero stuff, because I think they're trying to read in a lot of themes and topics that kind of
you feel don't fit.
Sort of fall apart.
You feel like they don't fit.
No, like the idea that we need to be careful about the destruction we wreak, but we're so strong we can knock a building down. Oh, Superman has to. Like, I think that's really dumb, because a lot of those superheroes, particularly say Superman, comes out of a place of worrying about the Cold War and worrying about the Second World War, and
Yeah.
Spider-Man is about a kind of vigilante justice within
Well,
New York
no.
City, and
Spider-Man
then
is-
Batman, which is supposed to be this kind of gritty reimagining of a superhero detective, and then it leads into anti-heroes and stuff. And
I would correct.
I think it caps off somewhere near Deadpool when it gets super self-reflexive and then starts pointing out at all the tropes and blah blah, blah and laughing at it in a good-natured way. But then at some point, I almost feel like they decided, well, yeah, superheroes wreck entire cities, but as Deadpool points out, but it's funny. And then they go, well, we can make this a serious issue. Hang on a minute, and it feels like Sesame Street trying to cover something really adult. And I'm kind of sitting there going, I don't like
It works, but it doesn't.
Yeah, which is why the older stuff
You think is
actually
good?
is brilliant. Like the fact that superhero is made by Jewish writers, in the aftermath of the Second World War, and how a lot of superhero stories, Superman stories, are kind of analogous to the anxieties of the time. That one person will come and save the helpless metropolis, which is probably how people would feel after the war. I mean, nuclear punctuation ended it. You have then the material that eventually will kill even the strongest man in the universe, which has a surprisingly nuclear waste.
It's also
waste
glowing and
looking-
green.
Yeah,
It's also glowing
almost
and
like
green.
They had an idea, but like I like that because I can see the story.
Don't lie, you loved that time where I ran down all the different colours of kryptonite and told you the pink kryptonite make him gay.
Look, fan fiction is one of the.
That's not fan fiction, that's real.
Fan fiction is one of the best weird messes I love. Like,
Pink kryptonite makes Superman gay. Fact. It's in the comics, Sean. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Is this where Alex Jones got the gay frogs thing from? But
Do you know what? I
like that earlier. I like that era of where you can see where the ideas are coming from and where they seem to be relevant, interesting. And then as they get later, I don't. It seems to lose the kind of. The kind of authenticity in it.
You would prefer that they looked at it at face value, rather than.
I would prefer. No, I honestly, I don't like what they turned into because they are such massive media events. Now they have to be edgy enough to be cool, but they also can't say anything interesting.
Oh man, you're gonna be in for a surprise when we start watching these movies.
Look,
they're funny. They're very funny.
I'm probably gonna be contrarian the entire time and whine about the amount of CG, but
do you know what? I think what's kind of interesting about what you said there though is that there's only one thing I'll actually correct you on, and that's the Spider-Man thing. Spider-Man isn't about vigilante justice. Spider-Man was more so. He was meant to. So basically, when Spider-Man was created, teenagers were never superheroes; they were the sidekicks.
Oh yeah, fair.
Spider-Man was actually created to give a character back to kids.
Yeah.
But it was the idea that like he would suffer through the same things. I think what's kind of interesting is that Spider-Man is the reason that Marvel, what people have coined as Marvel time, exists. So like in the space of 4 years, Spider-Man went from high school to college, which makes sense.
I mean, yeah, you could do that.
But they realized we're gonna age our characters to death if we keep running.
We actually keep up any kind of.
So they what they kind of started doing, and I do agree with it, I think it's cool. They say we haven't destroyed any established canon. We're just slowing the time down, and then eventually every couple of years we'll just release an issue that does the origin again. But they did one with Spider-Man called Spidey, and it is good. And what's strange enough is that if you actually replace it with I think you take the first 8 issues of the original Spider-Man and just slot this in, it fits. It fits perfectly. It doesn't change established continuity. He still wears the same dorky clothes, but talks about like.
Isn't that slightly disrespectful to the original authors and how they wrote it? Like.
No, I don't think so. I think it needs to adapt.
Because that's the line where fan fiction starts getting in. Because fan fiction does the exact same thing.
This is like.
It's just that it just doesn't have the blessed.
But as I said to you last time, it's the same thing. Same thing with Pokemon. Like. The
Pokemon is not immune to my pointless ranting.
No, but like as I said, like people complain about the new Pokemon looking like fan art, but eventually that does happen, and when a franchise goes on long enough, because people who grew up with the franchise eventually end up working on it in some capacity.
But at what point then does it stop being a franchise? Like, at what point do you?
I don't think it ever
do you
does.
start saying that Pokemon isn't Pokemon anymore because the only people left are Pokemon fan artists? It's like when, like.
I don't think that's true. I think
superhero canons are. Well, no, not even superhero canon, because this, like I said, this applies to fan fiction. Like Sherlock Holmes is notorious for this. Where Arthur Conan Doyle only wrote like 3 stories. 3, 4? He wrote not many, but that canon canon continues on as the fans continue writing stories and adding in bits left and right, and just goes on for years.
Well, it's like Doctor Who. David Tennant played Doctor Who, and he was a big Doctor Who fan as a kid, and the same with Peter Capaldi. But like, people would actually say, strange enough, that so up until David Tennant played Doctor Who, and he played Doctor Who for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
People would have considered the actor Tom Baker as
canonical sort of
no.
image.
People just called him the Doctor.
Yeah.
He played the 4th Doctor, but because he played the 4th Doctor for nearly a decade, and most Doctors kind of do 3 or 4 years. He played him for 8.5 years, I think. So he did a long run compared to his predecessors and his contemporaries.
Yeah.
And David Tennant then came along, and we were like, we love him, but it's because I think with a character like that though, it's different. Like Doctor Who canon changes every time a new writer comes in, every time a new Doctor comes in.
Then to talk about the character as one continuous thing is to do something different than to talk about the bits and pieces. Because then you have the arc where this guy was playing the Doctor, you know, and the stories that because I presume like the writers and actors change, so things change.
The way that the people break it down is that they would say like talking about like they take like David Tennant played the 10th Doctor, so they go like that's 10 story. They go that's a 9 story, it's an 11 story. I don't know which Doctor it is, but then you kind of have like the 9th and the 10th Doctor were in the era that Russell T Davies was the lead writer on the show, so they'd say the Davies era, and then the Moffat era is just finished, and we're in the Chibnall era that people aren't really happy with. But that's kind of hard to decipher whether it's the writing they don't like or the fact that we've got a female Doctor and people don't like that. And
female James Bond is coming.
Do you know what's really weird? The studio have actually said there will never be a female James Bond, but
that doesn't surprise me.
But it's because I don't get why they say this now, because they kind of fucked this theory up, and the theory that James Bond was a code name. But in one of the and it just passed on to different 007s.
Right.
And that kind of fits with the other.
Yeah.
But where they fucked it was that in the most recent James Bond movie before the one that's about to come out, Mr. Bond visits his parents' graves.
And they're called
Bond. And I'm like, they actually. What's even funnier is
it's a coincidence.
They pretty much did the same twist that Austin Powers 3 did.
No way.
Yeah.
God, we're in the era
with
of
gold,
satire
with the same, with the villain that Dr. Evil is based on.
No, look, in fairness to the Doctor Who thing, more than not the Doctor Who thing, to the James Bond thing. James Bond as a character is very much male power personified. Like, this is the reason that he goes from this kind of hot-talking, suave, sleep with all women thing to this more physically capable action hero. Because the standards changed somewhat, but they also don't want to make him
Me Too movement.
They don't want it. He's not ready for Me Too. That's the thing. James Bond.
That's what.
He's an old man.
Man, the new James Bond movie should have just been called No Time to Me Too. Like, well, actually, I think what's kind of cool is they introduced
the Doctor doesn't have that connotation, so.
Yeah, what's kind of great because they've been hinting at it for years. Because they did an episode where this other Time Lord regenerates into a woman, from a man to a woman. So they were like saying it can happen.
Yeah.
Like the Doctor isn't specifically a white man. He's just gotten. Like I think about it is I kind of had this conversation with my girlfriend about this. She's not a Doctor Who fan, but she was like, she was asking me why there was a lot of pushback, I guess. But I had said I kind of understand why, but not from a toxic masculinity look at it. More from if you're a writer about a time travel show, maybe a character that is a female or person of color isn't the best person to be the lead, based on the fact that every time they go back in time, they are going to be.
That's true.
It does happen. There's an episode where he goes back with one of his companions who is a black girl, and she is made become a maid.
Immediate racism. Yeah.
Immediate racism.
If you're going back in time, you do have to deal with if you want to go back in time and do tell a story about old cultures, you're gonna have to include that, which is gonna be
racism and sexism.
Not fun for something, particularly something that the BBC have to bankroll.
And I think the thing about it is that I people keep saying, oh, well, they should just ignore it, but I think that's more disrespectful.
That's erasing history.
Because that's just saying, oh no, racism didn't happen.
On the topic of racism in lost episodes, Tom and Jerry.
That's lost media.
I'm gonna ride my segue right through this. That's not.
Fion's just trying to make this not a lost episode.
Trying to.
The waveform of this is
going
nuts.
That's gonna get me in trouble later. But no,
Well, like last episode, like top of the Tom and Jerry stuff. This is the statement they gave. They gave. I think it was. I can't remember who it was. I think it was MGM or it was Amazon or something that re-released them all. But it was. They went on basically a stroll of let's release loads of cartoons in their original format, even though that's racially insensitive. But I think it was like Whoopi Goldberg they got to announce it, so it's the best person. But they she basically says, I know they got a lot of other directors as well, but she's the one I remember most. It was the quote that I fully believe in is to release these edited in the way that they were and remove all the stereotypes and the horrible things in them is kind of to say that it didn't happen, and like that's worse.
Archivism is hard.
It is. The weird one actually, the one of the weird ones I found as well is though, because I went to see the film about it the other day, well, the film about the person the other day. There was 5 episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I don't think they were ever aired, but people knew about them. It's about conflict because it was the Cold War, so he made 5 episodes about conflict and why it exists, and they were missing for so long, right, until somebody pointed out they were missing, and then all of a sudden 2 episodes went up, uploaded like a day later, and then a year later,
just sent someone into a panic to check the vaults.
the other 3 uploaded. Finally, after fucking 30 years or 40 years of being in an archive somewhere, gathering dust.
Well, no, hang on. In fairness, see, I'm taking a course with the IFI. Exciting. The Irish Film Institute does a lot of work in gathering together old media and then trying to transcode them and archive them properly, as many archives do. Not just in a digital format because hey, computers are easy, but also to save the old stuff. And like, I feel bad for anyone, and my heart goes out to them for the amazing work they do. If they're working with old 16mm magnetic tape, anything like that, because holy crap, I didn't realize that there was a fungal risk when working with that stuff, but oh damn. And never mind that, go back even longer, apparently because everything was filmed on nitrate, just will spontaneously combust. And it's like, why did you ever think that wasn't a good idea?
That's why that's a trope in like cartoons and stuff when they're watching the film just like ignites.
Yeah.
I think like something one of the more interesting.
Why would you do that and then run it through a heating?
Here's actually a really interesting thing that I don't think you may have known. So years ago when films came out in like America, different movie theater chains would cut movies differently.
Oh, they actually had in-house cuts.
They did in-house cuts. They were like, oh, people don't like this, we're gonna cut it. That's true. There's so many films. There's a film called Freak Show. It's very famous. It was cut from 120 minutes to 48.
What?
Little over 4. I think it's a little over 40 minutes, 8 minutes, and I think most of it now is lost. It's considered just lost to time. You cannot get it anymore because obviously they cut it and threw it away.
Yeah, they just dumped it. Yeah.
There's a really famous example. Like people aren't. This is how lost this is. People aren't sure if it was actually shot or not. So, but there's an interesting story to this. So for the original King Kong, there was a scene with spiders. I know you're an arachnophobe, so this is like the fun part for you. There's a scene with gigantic spiders that they would get attacked by, and people aren't sure if this was like real or not. But there was so many like vivid descriptions of it. But when Peter Jackson went to make his King Kong movie, you can bet your sweet ass he was gonna put that in it.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like, and I think that's kind of cool because that's kind of an example of like the best case scenario with lost media is that when someone eventually remakes it, tries to do a faithful remake of.
The best case scenario with lost media
is
that
finding
we cross off the lost bit.
That's
the best case. Like the emulators get written, or the like one target actually has the last cassette tape, and we can finally save. Like that's what the BBC were doing when Doctor Who started. When Doctor Who came back and started to get really popular, they were asking people for their old cassettes,
for videotapes of recordings of Doctor Who,
actually,
and they'd pay you for them.
Yeah, did you know the IFI, according to them, are one of the only particularly nationally supported institutions that take in home film.
Yeah.
Like, they'll take in your granddad's owl's fucking real shot on his home 60mm, when most institutions will look at that and go, Yeah, but it wasn't like
Film.
It wasn't film. Like, well, why do you care? That's just your that's just your granddad's holiday photos. I don't
Yeah.
care. Where the Irish Film Institute would turn around and go, look, film took forever to get to Ireland. Like, we had like media blackouts during the Second World War, and like the Irish state came into existence during the First World War. Like, when all of this was happening in the States and in Japan and in England, when England wasn't on fire, Ireland was kind of busy trying to not fall apart instantly. So we don't have the film industry from back then, but what we do have are the early adopters filming like birthday parties and trips through
Like the
historic
zoo and
sites,
stuff. And
and plays and reading. So they just said, look, if your great granddad had a box, and in that box was like the oldest cassette tape you could find, give it to us. We will digitize it, and we will like donate it. We'll digitize it, and we'll keep it. And then if you request it, it'll go up. It'll go up online and stuff, which is just, it's amazing.
there's some.
Also, oh my god, they had to build a new building out near us just because they ran out of space because they had so much stuff
People
to
started
work
selling
with.
I want to know. There's one interesting thing I want to know how they did. How did they get all the Bosco stuff? Because I know they re-released a lot of the Bosco episodes on DVD years ago. And for me, I'm like, because the way I look at it is, if the UK were terrible at archiving stuff that was going to eventually become really, really popular, how were Ireland really good at fucking archiving something that nobody realistically at this point in time
In fairness,
cares about anymore?
like, we're minorly obsessive with history.
Yeah.
Just a smidge. just.
Because like that's what shocked me as well is when sadly Gay Byrne passed away last year. Like sadly, he was really old, but yeah, it's sad. Still
Doesn't
sad.
change anything.
Still sad. There was loads of footage of him of the Late Late Show, and it's kind of that really weird thing. Is like why archive that, especially the really early ones,
Yeah.
when like you didn't know.
Yeah.
It was gonna be and I can understand, like, if I was at RT at that time, I'd be like, yeah, archive that, this could be really, really popular. But from a
How did anyone know? Especially given how controversial he was. I mean, in a country where, I mean, what's the general saying about Gay Byrne? He invented sex in Ireland because he was one of the first
best clip to go
national
online.
media presenters to actually kind of just talk about sex.
I hope Gay Byrne, I hope you're up
Didn't
there
happen.
somewhere wiggling a condom like Jesus. Just going, look at it. This is it. This is the culprit. That's my favourite clip of Gay Byrne.
He was a controversial person as well.
This is my
Which makes it funny that all of it was saying, but I think it's just like, what was it? The Irish film industry started in like the 80s. RTE's vault would have been filling up by that point, and at that point, like, if the BBC would have started collecting stuff, then surely the Irish, like, or the RTE and the National Archives would have started grabbing stuff as well. Like,
there's some. See, there is. The thing about it is, it's I would even say stuff in the National Archive can be considered lost if nobody in the public has seen it in so long.
that's fair.
Because I
That's
think,
fair.
because I know there was a show and it's basically Ireland's answer to Doctor Who, kind of, and it's what looks like a tent that flies in the air, and the guy inside it's pushing a pedal bike, and that's what makes it work. That's what I think. I saw it on Republic.
I want to see this.
It was on Republic of Telly. They showed it on Republic of Telly this one time, and I was really confused.
I want to see this.
And I've tried. I can't think of the name of it. I really want to find it, but it's so stupid. But it's not like wonderfully. It's so stupid, but could only happen in Ireland.
Yeah.
There's also another show that I know of.
The jankery that people get away with.
It's a kid show, but this is how lost this is. They don't know how many episodes of this aired.
Mm-hmm.
They know it exists because they have clips, but they only have 2 clips, and it's from someone's showroom.
Oh.
I think it's called Jiminy Jilliker or Jiminy.
Was it Irish?
It was on RT.
Right.
It was an RT show.
The Irish Film Institute will tell you.
It's
It
like,
could
I
be
know.
down there.
All I know is I know it had a weasel in it that was like a stuffed animal thing, and it would become evil at night and stuff. This is like fever dream levels of terrifying
In
looking.
fairness, though, like kids shows in the 80s were kind of like that.
I think it's 90s.
That doesn't change much.
But, like,
slightly less LSD.
But that's what makes me. That's what kind of makes me go, wow, that's really shocking. Is that in the
Yeah.
90s?
Well, like
Because the 90s would have been in the era, because the 90s would have been the era of like, let's look.
VCR recording.
Well, no, not even that. The RTE used to release everything on fucking home video.
Oh yeah.
RTE, if they wanted to, would release like RTE
Sorry.
News on home video.
Yeah, I'm mixing up contemporary RTE I'm sorry if you work at RT. I doubt you care if what I say, but you know.
Probably voted Sinn Féin today.
Their archive system online in particular is a shambles.
Because
I was writing about early Irish radio. So the inception of 2RN, which was their call sign, up to it becoming Radio Éireann and then eventually Radio Television Éireann in the 60s. And oh my god, there's like 3 or 4 clips of audio online, and it's like a snippet of the first speech, and half of it's in Irish, which I'm sorry, Colin McGlail, I speak English.
Yeah.
I can't understand what he's saying, and stuff like that. Like, it drives me mental. There's an interview with a guy, and they're talking about what it's like to work on the early Radio Éireann station on Henry Street, and he tells this great story about, you know, how the equipment was working and how honestly kind of difficult and kind of thrown together it was. Because obviously it would have been really mechanical rather than today where you kind of...
Well, RTE's first basically would have been pirate radio station levels of...
No. Well, okay, quality-wise, maybe. But it was nationally funded, much to the annoyance of the then Postmaster General, who wrote in his report that the Postmaster General believes that the Postmaster General does not have the skills nor competence to run a radio station, which is one of the most honest pieces of doll writing I have ever seen.
Let's be honest, it's the only honest piece of doll writing that's ever existed.
It just said, I can't do it, I won't do it, don't make me do it, and he had to do it anyway.
What would happen if our entire government we just can't do this, lads? No, I think the weird thing about RTE though is that like
I know they have the stuff
because they have the player. They have the player.
But that's the thing. But that's the problem because they don't put stuff on the player properly, and then when it's up, it's only up for like.
A famous example I have actually of the RTE player being shitty is Blind Boy. On his podcast, he gave out about the fact that his Rubber Bandit show, he thought it wasn't on the RTE player.
Probably was for about a week.
But it is.
Yeah.
It's just you have to. So you can't find it, and I don't know if you can now, but originally you couldn't find it in the standard comedy section.
Where was it?
And you had to search it by name. And I understand, like, oh yeah, would you just do that? But like,
no, that's the point of.
It's not even. It's not even the right name. The name is the Rubber Bandits Guide to Everything, but it's just the Rubber Bandit. It's called the Rubber Bandits and things like that. Yeah.
Like that's just doing it badly.
I even think another stupid example that I have. They don't have.
Look, bad archives are gonna add to the list of lost everything.
They another example of like media that's pretty much lost until RTE runs it again is the Damo and Ivor show.
Like there's a load of RTE originals that are like that, like Love Hate.
Love Hate's on the RTE player.
Not for long. It's not.
It's on DVD though. They released it on home video, so it's. I would consider that less lost.
Give them time.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
But that's the thing. That's the thing I don't like about it is that like I understand the difficulty of server hosting and I understand the difficulty of running a website.
And releasing.
I've tried to do it. It's hard.
Also, physically releasing content.
Yeah, but like with little money they have, like the Irish Film Institute does their stuff. They're funded a little bit for the government. They're funded by themselves, and they have this amazing player. And they're internationally recognised.
You're going to the IFI the next time and he's told to get out.
I've been there once now. I've been there like a handful of times now, and I already love them. But like, I don't know how they can do it so well, and then the National Content Service can't. Drives me mental.
Because they had to pay Ryan Tubridy a ridiculous amount of money to talk to shit guests.
Look, drives me mental.
Eventually,
give the old stuff up.
It's weird.
It's such a nightmare for. Look, honestly, part of this is because last semester was hard, and it wasn't made easier by the fact that I had no goddamn sources because RT wouldn't upload anything to the bloody player after like 20 years of having it there.
No, I think what's also annoying about the RTE as a whole is that so years ago they didn't greenlight a lot of shows. They just said, oh no, that's not for us.
Yeah.
And then they went to other networks, and now those shows would have been big money for RTE, and then they ended up actually eventually buying the license to air those shows, which is kind of embarrassing. So the two shows that I can think of in question is Father Ted, RT
don't own Father Ted.
RT, it's Channel 4. RT rejected Father Ted originally. Apparently, this is, and then the other one is Mrs. Brown's Boys, which is owned by the BBC,
which is ridiculous because it's set in Dublin.
It's not even that. It's like it's the most Irish thing.
Yeah.
That and Father Ted are the two most Irish things I've ever seen, and the newest culprit of this as well, because they couldn't afford it, because they didn't take shows like this at the time and didn't make all the money, is the Young Offenders. There's actually two examples. The Young Offenders is owned by the BBC now, but RTE pays them a license to air it. And then the other one is Blind Boy Undestroys, but this is even more ridiculous. It's not viewable in Ireland.
Huh?
It's on. So remember the way a couple of years ago BBC cancelled BBC Three and made it only online.
Yeah.
It's
but I
now you know. So BBC Three is only online now, but it's all the BBC iPlayer, which cannot be viewed outside of the UK.
Okay.
So Blind Boy Undestroys is exclusively
Great.
on the iPlayer.
At what point, on what side of this Brexit argument can I run across the county up into the north to watch a few episodes of Blind Boy in a field and then come back down?
They're like, I think what's kind of great is in his podcast he's been openly advising people to get a VPN and watch it.
Look, at that point you're getting quasi-legal, and actually there's an interesting question in there. I was watching, I forget the name of the channel. He did a really good breakdown of Five Nights at Freddy's actually, and talking about the AI and stuff and how it all works. But he's also talked about the hacking scenes, particularly console hacking, and he makes this really interesting. He says this really interesting thing that the hacking scene and the piracy scene aren't actually the same thing, even though they have a lot of overlap. The hacking scene generally just want to root hardware to get full use out of it. So the Nintendo 3DS has a 3D screen and I want to play with it, but Nintendo won't let me. So I'm going to hack the machine so that I can do everything I want with it. Although that technically opens the door to run, pirated code. And the pirates don't particularly want that. They just want to play games, do stuff for free. But I was also speaking to my lecturer for that essay on the RT, and she was talking about how in the field of archivism, particularly media archivism, the unlikely heroes turned out to be the pirates all along, because when all the let's say the BBC in particular, like the BBC destroyed everything from early BBC. They just got
burnt it.
All of it. It's just gone. If anything exists from very early BBC, like sort of the 1915s-ish, or like very early, maybe the 1800s.
Radio stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the radio stuff. If any of that exists in a listenable format, it was because someone who wasn't the BBC saved it. And as you get later, like, the reason people have those episodes of those television shows from the 90s that no one cared about is because someone was sitting at home with a VCR recorder and just recorded it. And rather than being in trouble, now they're invited to galas because they're the only person who has the copy of this one cartoon that aired once in the middle of Nebraska, in Alaska or whatever, and they just happened to record it. Like, so what do you think? Is piracy the answer to everything in the end?
Piracy is the weird thing though, because like piracy in my opinion is good in some ways and it's bad in others. Piracy nearly killed the film industry in the 2000s. That's fact. This decade was kind of saved by companies like Disney. Disney are really uppity about piracy. They will.
Yeah.
They pay people to take down pirated videos of their movies online.
Really?
It's very hard. It was very I put it this way. Avengers: Age of Ultron got pirated online like properly, and it stayed there the day before the DVD released.
Ooh.
And it was because at that point they were like, we made most of it, like, because they don't consider, like, most of them don't consider DVD sales anymore.
Yeah.
Movies gross their entire budget. They like as long as they gross their budget back in the theaters, they don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
because it's all streaming services now.
The biggest like incident Disney have had in the last decade was one of the Pirates. I think Pirates of the Caribbean being 5
Ironically.
was stolen. Like the actual like
The film reel, like.
was stolen,
Awesome.
and someone threatened to put it online unless they received money.
I love that the Pirates movie was stolen by pirates and then ransomed back.
I think what's even funnier about this is the fact that the way the news reported, Disney called a town hall meeting to discuss this. I'm like, oh, don't fucking say that. That just makes me think Mickey Mouse just stood at a podium somewhere and went, okay, we gotta get the film back. Okay, Goofy, you go break his legs. You know, something like that happened. I'm like, no, that's not what happened. There is like Disney Studios is part of the park, so it's town hall. So they closed off a section of the theme park to talk to people to make sure that.
Yeah, but that was they called the
town hall
meeting.
It wasn't even them that called it. They
Whoever
wrote the article.
That article, top-notch pun. I'm so glad that you.
I hope you regret that as much as Adam Kovic. As much as Adam Kovic regrets calling Far Cry 3 Skyrim with guns.
Every now and again, the best title ever comes along. And you know what? I'm very glad you passed up the joke about pirating a Pirates movie and got to make the town hall joke.
Like, that's the funniest joke in that article. But that's like, I think that's when piracy is like horrible, because like I feel like, no, the studio that has spent billions or millions putting into like a film, because like what's really weird is when you look at a budget for a movie, that doesn't factor in advertising.
Yeah.
Because that's considered a follow up to recording the movie and editing and everything.
Yeah, it's like an admin expense after the fact.
It's like, and it's really weird because there's some movies out there you'd be like, oh, they didn't get a lot of advertising, but they still did well. Guardians of the Galaxy didn't get a lot of advertising. It ended up being the highest grossing August movie of all time when it released.
Well, that's partially because
Word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth, or like the contemporary. Would you like to know how contemporary movies are marketed? Not through word of mouth or advertising, because it's fucking memes.
Yeah.
It's always memes.
No, but this was his opening weekend, so like it is really hard to
yeah,
like.
but the stupid was the screenshot from the trailer of the dried raisin holding.
No, that's Guardian. That's Avengers. It's
Okay.
Guardians. If he is in it, but it's not
Look,
there.
Yeah, but
No, fairness. This is the movie with the raccoon and the talking tree.
Yeah, but the raccoon was in it. Like, that's already meme material, okay?
I'm sorry. Can you tell me that?
There was a lot. Reddit loved that goddamn raccoon screaming at the tree
I'm
about
sorry.
not understanding.
The bomb.
Look, when you get into meme space, nothing means anything anymore. But just the things that Reddit decided that they were screaming about, just.
Can I tell you?
Marketed
I just
itself.
kind of want to point out my favorite meme of the last year is Baby Yoda. I love Baby Yoda so much, but it's just because the Irish meme community have gotten so much out of it.
I haven't
Like,
seen them. What have they been doing?
one of my favorite ones, it was around Christmas time, so do you know the one with the holding the cup? It's like your mom watching you open presents on Christmas morning. But then there's the other one, it's like that, and then it's one of the Baby Yoda like with a really surprised face, like your mom watching you open your Christmas presents, and then your dad just as surprised as you are to see what you got. This is what I sent my girlfriend last night, and it's like him smiling, a little tongue kind of waggling out. It's like when your girlfriend opens up a packet of snacky snacks and you want some. It's like,
Are you a dog?
yeah, it's like, oh my god, I understand that entirely. I don't know. Baby Yoda memes are just funny, and I think it's even greater is that
I love some of the ones you don't need words for. Surprise Pikachu, top notch.
the Disney actually, so Disney Plus is coming out a week earlier now than it was intended to in the UK and Ireland, and the way they chose to announce this was with the Baby Yoda meme,
Of course.
and it's a scene from The Mandalorian where you keep pushing a button and turning on music, and then the Mandalorian like stop pushing the buttons, but he pushes the button and then it goes from like March 31st to like March 24th. It's like stop. And he pushes it again, brings it back down to March 24th, then just cuts. Yeah, Disney Plus now coming out March 24th. So I was like, that's go for it. Yeah, make the meme your advertising campaign. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars though, like the original trilogy, like its original state being lost is interesting. The holiday special is something that George Lucas wishes was lost media.
Yeah, that's.
I think what's funny is that that's the first ever piece of media with Boba Fett in it.
Is it? Huh.
It's how Boba Fett was introduced. He was in a cartoon. It's like It's weird. Chewie had a family in this. Like, it was so it's disgusting.
Gotta watch this thing. I've heard that it's supposed to be this black mark on Lucas's career, but I've never actually got to see
I'm gonna put it this
watch
way, Fiona. Right? We'll watch both of these. All right. So so Howard the Duck is a movie that he made. Okay.
I vaguely remember it.
Okay. George Lucas didn't mind that being out there, but he doesn't want the holiday special. How bad does that have to be?
That's why I want to watch it.
So we're gonna watch it. That'll be one of our reviews. We'll do it around Christmas and we'll review it.
Yeah, perfect. Look, it lost this stuff, and poor Lucas is fucked.
Oh, boy, George.
I just like.
I don't think it's all Lucas's fault. I'm gonna say that now. I would say that that's partially.
He's the one who's upset about it, which is why I'm laughing about it.
I would say that the whole lost media thing isn't like the original trilogy being lost. I would say that's probably not all George Lucas's fault. I would say that he went back and did it, and then the studio decided not to sell the original version again.
But he's a perfectionist from all the descriptions and all the things he's a bit of a perfectionist.
Oh yeah,
and he's a bit of a perfectionist and a control freak.
That's why Disney. It's
which
really
I
weird.
understand. It's hard to do things properly when you don't have someone standing over you going, "Shut up, just do it."
I think the most interesting cases actually recently as well of lost media regarding Star Wars. I don't know if we can count this, but it's Star Wars Episode 9 Duel of Fates was what it was originally going to be called.
Is this like the Holy Grail?
So the original director of Star Wars Episode 9, Colin Trevorrow, was fired after Episode 8 came out.
Yes.
Because people freaked
I
out.
really didn't like it. And then
I loved Episode 8. I really liked Episode 8. I thought, fuck, this did something new. Yay. Yay to the new thing. Stop telling me the same story. And then this is what annoys me with Star Wars fans. I completely will state the new trilogy failing is their fault. It's Episode 7 comes out. It's too much like the original one. Episode 8 comes out. It's too different. What do they do? What do they actually do after that? They can't do anything because it can't be too new. Like Episode 9 now is kind of terrible. But it's not. Oh, okay, it's a bit strong. It's because someone said it was their least favorite Star Wars movie, and I was like, okay,
but it's making the best of a bad situation with
Carrie Fisher dying. That would have been tough to go around. That movie, like that. Those scenes look rough,
yeah.
but it's definitely tough.
It's also who's directing it?
J.J. Abrams directed this one.
I read an interview with Abrams, and he himself said he's bad at endings. Like. He likes starting things,
but doesn't
and
like
he
finishing.
Likes explosive beginnings and setting the scene. He says ending things is really hard, and he doesn't.
Because it's hard to satisfy.
He's just honest with it. He's just honest in saying that he doesn't feel comfortable in drawing things to neat conclusions that he thinks is good enough for everything that's come before, which I understand. And I believe the deal for the trilogy of Star Wars is that he was on to help start it. He was just
going to direct the first one.
Yeah, and then he was gone. Like after that, it was supposed to be this other guy. And there was the coup, and he.
No. What happened was they had 3 directors picked because they wanted
3 directors.
But the problem with it was that so the original Star Wars trilogy is pretty much a product of we kind of made it up as we went along.
Yes.
But it makes sense because
great tradition.
Because Fox didn't expect it to do well.
Yeah.
Fact. They just didn't. It was this, like, to put it this way, Mark Hamill was allowed to freely pass his script around to all of his friends.
Wow, they did not.
That's how little they cared. But they didn't expect it to do so well, and then, like, so the whole, like, the original line was Obi-Wan killed your father. That was the original thing. It wasn't, like, Darth Vader was not Luke's dad at all.
Oh.
So that was an invention for the second film. It was made up as they went along. Like, the depressing thing I have to always admit now is that the prequel trilogy is the most consistent Star Wars trilogy because stuff they set up in the first film still makes a lot of sense in Act 3. So it's tonally consistent.
Yeah.
Throughout, this trilogy, it feels like 3 movies made by 3 very different directors. I feel like they should have kept Rian Johnson on, even though actually 3 movies made by 3 different directors. Even though 2 of the movies were directed by the same person, it's fact.
Yeah, but he dropped the script and walked away, and then had to come back.
What happened kind of was that. How I feel is that Force Awakens was a response to the prequel trilogy, and then Last Jedi was a response to fan criticism of Force Awakens. And then Rise of Skywalker couldn't be anything else but fan response of the Last Jedi,
Yeah.
which I think he should have just, because it really did undo a lot of the stuff from Last Jedi, which is fucking horrible. They shouldn't have done that. That's really disrespectful, in my opinion. Because Last Jedi did not undo anything from Force Awakens. It took, because Star Wars up until this point operated on a very black and white spectrum.
Yes.
But Last Jedi introduced a very poignant shade of grey in there, and I think they did it very well.
Well, like, I know, but if you're gonna add complexity that simple, honestly don't think an hour and a half movie is enough time to talk about.
Last Jedi I think is the longest Star Wars film.
Yeah.
So I think it sits at around 2.5 hours.
Yeah, but they had an hour and a half to introduce it, get it running, introduce a conflict, and then get it solved, and then around everything else.
Like my biggest criticism of Last Jedi is this is funny, alright? So
the meta criticism.
People say that the Last Jedi is just one long spaceship chase, and I'm just like, have you seen Empire Strikes Back?
I mean, yeah.
Empire Strikes Back
literally is a giant chase scene.
It's a gigantic chase. That whole movie is a chase scene with stuff happening in other locations.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of the criticism is it's not the old Star Wars. Fuck you.
Yeah, but and again, like I said earlier, you're never gonna get that again. Star Wars was a really big moment, not just in film. It was a really big moment in sci-fi, because up until then, I think sci-fi in particular was in the new wave. So you were seeing things like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which became
Blade Runner.
With a lot of its philosophical edges handed down. Read the books. Books are good.
Well, like they added like extra stuff. They added the whole fear of the East concept to Blade Runner.
Yes, but adding Orientalism is not a good thing.
No, but like that's what I'm saying. Like I would say I wouldn't, because I would always say that Blade Runner isn't an adaptation of Do Electric Sheep or Do Electric.
It is though.
But I would say that it's more of an inspiration rather than an adaptation.
Look, here's the thing. Going on even to the other thing, this is the era just before Star Wars comes out. You're in, I want to say it's the new wave of sci-fi, where science fiction goes from its from its very early beginnings in Frankenstein, which is this grounded in reality, realist sort of story.
You can go further back than that. You can go to like.
Generally speaking.
No, you can go like to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and stuff. That's.
Yeah, but in general.
Yeah.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is one of the earlier science fiction novels, because it's technically not a science fiction novel. It's technically a gothic novel, but
it's got higher. Like
yeah, and people start working off what she put down, and then it goes. But as sci-fi got older, it decided it was going to be more realistic, and then it decided it was going to get fantastical, and that's where you get stuff like Star Trek and that kind of like Zap Brannigan. Everyone's wearing spandex, wearing silly like these laser guns around, and ships are made of tinfoil.
Oh wait,
and then you hit the new wave of sci-fi, which is when everything gets really serious, down to earth, and you get stuff like Roadside Picnic in Russia, and you get Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and you get Neuromancer, which kickstarts the cyberpunk movement and that sort of thing. And then you get Star Wars, and Star Wars is able to meet the new wave and its quasi-philosophical ranting by saying there's a light and a good, and we have to find a balance for yin-yang, and blah, blah, blah. And also by telling a story that doesn't make everyone feel like shit at the end. And everyone loves it, and it goes crazy, and ever since then we've had sci-fi that's trying to be Star Wars. And whenever a new Star Wars series comes out, and they're looking at the original trilogy, and they're saying we want to do that again, that's not possible. You're never gonna end the new wave again.
I think how I always like to put it with the new Star Wars stuff as well is people can't and shouldn't criticize episode by episode. I do think, like, because it's strange, because I can understand the argument that they should be able to stand alone, but it is a trilogy.
Yeah.
It is meant to be viewed as three. It's meant to be a part of a whole thing.
Yeah.
Not a, like, so that's what kind of irks me is like, you can't blame, like, when people say, oh, stuff in, like, Last Jedi was too dark. Last Jedi had undeveloped themes. Like, yeah, but that's the point of the next film, is that they're going to develop it further.
Yeah.
Because the ball that rolled to start these themes started rolling in episode 7. That's the point. Also, fuck you. The middle part of a trilogy is meant to be dark. The middle part of the trilogy, so the start and how trilogies are meant to realistically be structured. You can see it. You can see it in Lord of the Rings and everything, right? First part's very lighthearted. It's
the beginning of the journey. Everyone's coming together.
Yeah, and it very much has a very happy, hopeful style ending.
Yeah.
The middle section is the big.
Wow, this is hard.
Is the big like knockback, and it's where it gets very dark and dour, and it doesn't look like they're going to win, or they're, you know, like take the original Star Wars trilogy. Episode 1, very hopeful. They destroy the star. They destroy the Death Star. Everyone's happy.
Gets an award except for the Wookiee because racist.
He gets an award in Rise of Skywalker.
Hey,
he finally gets his medal. I'm gonna lie. I nearly cried. I nearly cried in that scene. And I was sitting next to my parents and my girlfriend and my sister, and they're like, "Why?" And I was like, "Chewie finally got his fucking medal."
Yeah.
But
then in the second one you have
okay. Let's
the
Luke.
realization.
No. Let's look at it. Let's like break down the fucking ending of Empire. Right? Luke loses his right hand. Han Solo, frozen in carbonite, maybe dead, maybe alive. They're all scrapped and scrambled around the place. The rebel fleets are kind of nowhere to be found. It's really dark. Like that ending is really dark. Also, point this out: people who complain about Luke and how Rey is a Mary Sue and how she has all these amazing powers so quickly, fuck you. Because when you rewatch the original trilogy, Jedi's were a myth.
Yeah.
And Luke just somehow knew how to do all these amazing things without seeing anyone do them.
Well, I mean,
but Rey at least has the courtesy to watch someone do them first.
The excuse is that Yoda did it and Yoda's amazing and it's all good because Yoda, and it's like, but
no.
Like, I think you're totally right about the new trilogy. The fans
kind of ruined it.
Honestly, I don't think it's because there was criticism. Having seen all but the last one, it deserved some criticism.
But not all the criticism that it fucking got.
The thing is, it deserved criticism insofar as it came out this year, and it was a flawed piece of film. One of the criticisms that I actually do find credence in is that, and that people like to say can be answered with removed scenes, which is never the answer because if it's not in the film, it doesn't count. If it's not in the book, it doesn't count. Just because it turned up in your diary afterwards, Tolkien, doesn't mean that you're the best storyteller ever.
Because you just thought of a way around of a plot hole that was already in an existing established fucking lore.
Even though Tolkien is very, very good. But the scene where the totally not a Death Star fired by the totally not Empire, totally not Nazis, fires the massive fucking beams and blows up 4 planets, and it's kind of written off in the theater cut. It just happens. And we're supposed to feel bad about it, and it's like, oh no, but like in the original trilogy, you had the moments on the planet that was being destroyed, and we were made aware of its importance to other people. And when it was destroyed, it was a big deal.
It was all around. It was one of our protagonists' home fucking planets.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. It's important, and we have a few things on the planet to see. But in the new trilogy, we don't. But in stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, there was actually moments on those planets, and there was people, and there was little like B and C plots, and that was all put to an end immediately by the thing. And I think the movie would have been better with that in, which makes me think they were under a bit too much pressure to streamline it a bit, maybe. Because I almost feel like those movies should have been longer, and they should have squeezed. They should have spread that story.
I think what the best thing that's happened in modern day cinema, I can say somewhat Avengers Endgame is somewhat to kind of thank for it, is that we're kind of coming into an age now where a 3-hour movie isn't a lot to ask of an audience member. Isn't a lot to ask of an audience member, because no, I didn't get an intermission, but no, I think if it's any, like, to put it this way, the original cut of Titanic was 4.5 hours.
Yeah, no, like films have gotten the 90-minute movie, I think, isn't enough time to tell a very big story.
No, it depends on here's how...
You can tell stories, definitely, and you can tell good stories, but I mean, if you're trying to tell something equivalent to an epic or a big long story, and you're trying to fit in loads of intricate details, and, like, I feel like, obviously cut it down to a watchable length.
I think 90-minute movies,
give
though...
them longer time.
I think a movie that's 90 minutes is reserved for horror comedies and animated films, realistically nowadays, yeah. Because firstly,
dramas and epics are starting to get more time, which is good because they need that.
think the two big movies that were 3 hours this year were The Irishman and Avengers Endgame. And I haven't seen The Irishman yet, but I've watched Avengers Endgame a lot of times, and that movie being 3 hours long, it needed it.
Yeah.
But it's because the plot that they went. To put it this way, like, it has a 3-act structure. It has a very clear 3-act structure, but those 3 acts, they fit really well together. But they are very, like, they feel like 3 different movies that they put together.
The thing is,
but because the movie is because the movie's 3 hours long,
yeah,
they can allow for that.
You have such a large cast in a scene in a movie like that you need the time to actually make the characters sit. Because then you end up with the 90-minute superhero movie where there's 1 or 2 characters who are just kind of there
and don't kind of get anything to do.
Every now and again they turn up and slap something.
It's one of my biggest criticisms of Infinity War is that it feels like a lot of the characters in that movie didn't get moments. Now, granted, I don't think they needed moments because I think the 2 characters I think get shafted in these 2 movies the most is Drax and Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. And I don't think Mantis as much, but Drax, because Thanos killed his entire family, he has a personal stake in it.
Yeah.
I feel like he should have had more to do, but he like.
It's such a huge.
But it's such a. They had to. But that movie had to do so much. Like the first film, the first part had so much to do. It had to kind of establish the Avengers are still separated, and that's why they lost this fight. They are not together. They like if they were together. It looks like they still wouldn't have won. Like there's this amazing scene at the end where the other half of the Avengers, so like Captain America and all, they all charge at Thanos, and he just uses the gauntlet and just one by one just does away with them all like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And these are like characters that you've seen take down really like, so they like, I think the best thing they did with Thanos is establish him as a very valid threat.
Yeah.
Like the first thing he does in the movie is he KOs the Hulk without an Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
Like, and they established that that's really hard to do. They've established that that's never been done.
Yeah. See. Yeah. But, they use all that for character development to get all the
But-
aspects. Yeah. But like in Star Wars,
But I think
I think
where like a lot of other film franchises have a disadvantage over Marvel is that the Marvel films. Because I remember when I watched Avengers with a few of the people we used to hang out with, their biggest criticism of it was that it feels like the ending to 5 different films. But I think that doesn't actually hinder the film. I think that only helps it, because if you've seen, I understand the idea is that having to see 5 other films to understand this one is annoying. But I would also say that I could give that same criticism to another franchise like Harry Potter and say, well, to understand Order of the Phoenix, I have to watch Harry Potter 1 through 4. That's kind of ridiculous. But it's the same. Yeah, it's kind of the same argument because that's the way.
It's a bit all over the place because the Marvel franchise was so experimental at the time.
Yeah, but
Actually,
it's very impressive that it works.
Who is it? Overly Sarcastic Productions, who do videos on history and mythology and narrative in general. Who are very good. You should look if you're curious. Look them up. But she was talking. Red from Over Sarcastic was talking about superhero movies and modern superhero movies in particular. And she was talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe as being a kind of contemporary epic, like in the sort of Greek and Roman pantheon way, where individual gods would have their own legends and stories which would change,
and eventually they all come together.
They would come together sometimes in 1 or 2 stories, maybe in one story about one god, another god would come along, and you'd fit that in somewhere in the timeline, and then there'd be a big thing at the end. Like, she was almost saying that that's kind of the way it went, and that's probably why people are a bit annoyed and confused about it, because they don't seem like they should be part of one big thing. It's just that they are. It's a bit like telling a meta story throughout a whole bunch of stuff and kind of expecting people to follow along, and that wouldn't work for a lot of stuff. But it does work for the Marvel audience, because the Marvel audience are used to that with the comic book structure stuff. But look, for Star Wars, like you said about the fans, just to finish this, so we finish at least one coherent thought.
Oh yeah.
They needed longer movies per film.
Yeah.
To get the ideas through, but then. And it's something that Marvel never ran into, because when Marvel hit criticism, they just powered through.
Yeah.
And they said it's a different movie. We'll do something else. It's not part of the same trilogy. Whereas Star Wars had those expectations to live up to. When the fans started complaining and really started arguing, and the reviews started coming in and saying it wasn't very good, they tried to pivot, and I think it's the pivoting that really killed it. Like, it could have been an okay trilogy if they had just stuck with their guns and went with it and tried to tell a story, and then at the very end, you know, do the somersault, land on the platform and bow, and
leave.
You might get 4s across the board, you might not do great, but if you can at least get to the end and, you know, cross off the did not finish jokes, great. It's just the way they did it, you know, pivoting towards trying to, you know, upscale action and all that sort of stuff, and then getting rid of the original director so that they had to bring a different director who didn't want to work on it all, and then bringing him back and crushing the original. Like, of course it ended badly. Like, one of the best things I actually like about the new set of movies from Star Wars is that they then kind of borrowed a little bit of that Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they were doing the individual stories. And I don't care how people tend to say that, like Rogue One and I think
Solo.
Solo
works as if Solo was not, if it was not a Star Wars movie,
it probably would have done.
It would have done a lot better. It's because Solo is on its own is a good movie. I think the point that Solo, that you've seen Solo, yeah?
I haven't, but like
I
get around to watching it eventually. But I saw Rogue One when it came out, and I really liked Rogue One because it gave them a chance to just like.
It was a much different movie.
Yeah, it's the thing in sequelization modern today where everything has to be set up so that you can, if the sales go well, keep going.
Yeah.
And I love that Rogue One was this set story. Like, great, some of the characters weren't introduced perfectly, but they literally had one film to tell you this story, and that was it. And they filmed it like a fucking non-movie, which was just strange. Like, Star Wars is about spaceships and, you know, talking and lightsaber battles. And then you have this fucking beach war scene, and it's like, it was a nice change, and then the story was just that. It was self-contained, and it was done when it was over. I didn't have to worry about another movie coming out to upend stuff, and they then plugged it into the canon, and I think I came out of the theater and said to you, the very last scene in Rogue One, you can tell.
It fucks you.
Like, you can tell everyone involved with the production, I hope, was in love with that last scene, because you can just feel the energy in it. Which
the Darth Vader bit.
Yeah,
oh my god.
You lose it in a lot of other scenes when you're trying to be very have gravity and be very serious. You lose that energy, and it's fun to look at the screen and feel like they had fun.
I think if I were to cut one scene from Rogue One, and there's only one scene I would cut from Rogue One, it's the Darth Vader section in the middle. Because I think if you left it just for him to be in the end, it would have been like a really nice surprise. Because it was in the trailer, so that's kind of ruined it. No, I think
I would cut the scene at the top. Of the top of the thing where she gets shot in the back. Because honestly, like it
doesn't do. It doesn't go anywhere.
It actually doesn't make any sense. Dude falls down all the way down. The other guy takes the elevator, and somehow some of the guy who falls down ends up on the top as well. It's like that doesn't make sense.
The thing that I kind of think Lucasfilm need to adopt, that Marvel Studios adopted, is for bigger movies what Marvel started doing. I think they did it unwittingly, and it just worked well for them. So the first Avengers director was Joss Whedon, who did Buffy and Firefly, and then the guys that did Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and Captain America Civil War and Captain America 2 were Joe and Anthony Russo, the Russo brothers, and they worked on Community, Arrested Development, and a lot of other TV shows. Now, the reason that they are significant choices, they're TV directors.
Yeah.
So they're used to working with gigantic casts of main characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, like, because years ago, people didn't, like, it's like if you look at Disney villains as well, it's the same. People don't and didn't need, at the time,
complex introduction.
Well, the villains were the most important part.
Yeah.
Look at it. Look at Darth Vader. Like, tell me something from the original trilogy that is important about Luke, Han, and Leia. Like, give me you can't. There's nothing actually really deep about those characters from that original trilogy. Darth Vader is the most explored character.
Yeah, nothing that isn't hand waved away. Like, even though Obi-Wan's story, like Uncle Ben he's fleshed out in prequels. At the time, it's kind of just hand waved away and kind of vague Jedi.
My favorite thing, and I want them, if they were to make one edit to the original trilogy, it would be the scene where Alec Guinness as Ben Kenobi is like explaining the Clone Wars. It's his face. Someone recut that and added in clips from the prequels, and it looks like he's having a PTSD flashback, and it works so well.
Yeah, that would.
But what kind of gets me with that is also, like, because the only prequel trilogy movie I tend to watch when I'm binging all the Star Wars movies is Revenge of the Sith, but it's because I find that episode 1 and 2 are not important.
They're very long drawn out. They very much.
There's one important
They
scene in
heaped
episode 2, and it's at the end,
Yeah.
and it's he gets married.
Yeah, they heaped a lot of the important stuff at the end in 3 in general. Like, it's honestly, now that I think about it, with everyone complaining about how 1 was so boring, it's almost like they took the trilogy and tried to turn that into a 3-act structure, with 1 being ridiculously boring, with 2 being the order.
It's not.
60,
No, that's
and then in
episode 3.
3.
That's episode 3. Order
Oh.
66 is episode 3.
Okay. What the hell happens in 2?
Episode 2 is where Anakin comes back and he's grown up. It's after it's set 10 years after episode 1.
Oh, this is the General Grievous fight. Isn't
No,
it?
that's also episode 3.
Like, I don't remember anything.
Okay,
that happens
I'll
in 2.
I'll run the plot line of episode 2 down for you. So they discovered that there's a Sith Lord in their ranks in the Republic. Find out it's Count Dooku. Padme, Anakin's wife, is about to be assassinated. She's not his wife at the time. They go off to Naboo. Then Anakin and her like have the most like forced romance in cinematic
Yeah.
history.
That's the really awkward one where they're in the dark room together and there's a fucking slug or something.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and it's rough and it gets everywhere.
Final
And then
scenes as
Wait,
famous as the Final Fantasy.
there was my favorite thing about that movie is that they thought there was not enough action in it, so they added an action scene into it, and it's the scene where they're going through this big like droid assembly plant, and it's really when we will also watch the Star Wars movies. You'll see this scene
You don't have to.
and you will understand why this is the worst.
You don't have to. I'm already convinced that the early trilogy is not great.
The prequels are terrible. The prequels aren't great. The Revenge of the Sith is actually the prequel's saving grace.
Yeah, I
'Cause-
love the final fight scene. I love.
Because Revenge of what's not even that.
Memes aside, I love the final
Revenge
fight
of Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, it's the only one that's necessary. Like the only thing you really need to know is that Padme married Anakin, and that's not allowed, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But like the rest of the stuff isn't, because we know that, like, you know what I mean. I know, like, it's really weird because I know that the rule is meant to be show don't tell,
Yeah.
but there's also a lot in when they tell us something that it's kind of pointless now to show us. So like they explain that Anakin's a very good pilot, but there was no point in showing us that.
Yeah,
Because
honestly,
we know that now.
I would be curious to see the opinion of someone who hadn't seen the original trilogy and who started with the new trilogy. Not the new trilogy, sorry, the prequels, because I have to call it that now because there's a new trilogy. Agree.
Just the prequel and sequel trilogy.
But anyway, I would be curious to see someone watch it in episode order and tell
I
me
watched the
what
video.
they thought in that case, because that they would have a very different opinion for original viewers who
I,
have seen the middle of the series.
I actually
first.
watched the video where they showed a guy the Star Wars trilogy week by week, but episode by episode. They even showed him Rogue One, and his favorite film of all of them was Last Jedi.
Yeah,
And I can kind of see that because
it's a very strong film.
the weird thing to me is that I actually
If the
love.
lightsabers were plastic.
I would say Last Jedi is probably my favorite. Actually, no, second favorite. Empire will always be my favorite Star Wars movie. It is. I'm gonna hold my hands up. It's nostalgia. It's a powerful thing.
Oh yeah.
But it's not that. It's like I think nostalgia as well as that. Like I won't go back and watch something because I'm afraid that it's not as good. But I can still go back and watch Empire Strikes Back and go, that's still as good as it was when I was a kid. So I wouldn't even say it's true fucking nostalgia. I just don't like. I just don't like the prequels too much. And I think that's not nostalgia based. I grew up with them. I actually liked them when I was a kid. The best version of the prequel trilogy is the Lego Star Wars video games version of the prequel trilogy. But it's only because they understood that nobody liked the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think we should wrap this up now because we've been going on for nearly 2 hours.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be cut
You
out
can
of.
call it
What was it?
lost
like
episodes and lost trains of thought.
segues. It's like I just email Hannah. Hannah, can you do us another artwork? Can you please do 2 terrapins on a Segway?
Anyway.
Okay, I have been Kyle. This has been the podcast. This has also been Fionn.
Good evening.
Good
morning.
I don't know when this is gonna fucking go up. I'm still very sick right now. I'm probably gonna go out and get some medicine, clean my room, go to bed. Probably actually make dinner for my sister. Fuck, I've left everything till the last minute. She's home in 3 hours.
Artists, everybody.
Yay! Man, I'm gonna edit this though. We're gonna put it up. We don't know when the next episode's gonna be, but that's how this kind of swinging right now.
It's irregular. It's a gift. It's a gift to the inbox.
It's like a scary period. It's irregular. And on that bombshell, we're gonna end the episode now.